Now, I'm no stranger, but Spongebob is one of the most influential and iconic TV series to ever be put on television. Either you love it or hate it, but there's no denying this show will ever be forgotten from its merchandise, relatable characters, setting, funny dialogue, memes, and so much more elements the show brings to the table. Now, believe me, this show is wacky and sometimes you can't take it seriously for what it is, because of course, it is after all a kids show. However, even with these aspects, there's also something this quote-unquote kids show also dives into some dark and existent themes. For example, in Season 2, Episode 6, Squidville, Squidward is fed up with SpongeBob and Patrick as usual and decides to move somewhere else called Squidville where people look and behave exactly like him. When he does, he enjoys it at first doing the same thing repetitively. He finds a happiness and peace there until he starts to feel like something's missing from doing the same cycle again, which makes him unhappy and puts him closer to depression in the end. Now, I can go more in depth with this episode and give more examples of how other episodes showcase themes such as these, but there are already videos covering these topics already, so go watch those if you haven't. I'll link them down in the description below. But one episode I want to cover is one that not many people have talked about, and I feel this episode holds up there as a very unsettling episode, and that episode is called Gone. I can be the one to argue this episode is a goofy premise of how SpongeBob is suddenly the only person in Bikini Bottom while everyone else is, gone. And he goes on with his life to mimic everyone's looks and personality. But if you look at an episode from a different perspective, you can see the disturbing feeling of loneliness coming from the main character of the show when everyone he knows and cares about just vanishes one day. And let's talk about that. So the basic rundown of this episode is SpongeBob waking up to go work as usual, so he proceeds to feed Gary, but he doesn't answer. He does the same for Squidward and Patrick, but there's no response coming for them as well. He continues to walk around town and to his workplace at the Krusty Krab, where there's no civilians, Mr. Krabs, or any noises or sounds to be heard of, but he still doesn't think of it much and continues nonchalantly. When he comes home to find Gary still hasn't touched his food, he runs into a panic at Squidward and Patrick's house, but they have disappeared as well. He eventually goes into town inspecting if anyone is there, but to no avail. He then mimics and copies into some of the characters, but gradually gets upset until he grows attached with a sentient boat after getting his driving license. However, even though SpongeBob is content, he goes insane not talking to people and goes crazy of any sight of a motor vehicle and grabs himself an axe and proceeds to chop a bus approaching him on the road. To his surprise, everyone in Bikini Bottom revealed themselves as they were gone celebrating National No SpongeBob Day, including Patrick, his best friend. Although SpongeBob is saddened by this, who wouldn't be? I swear, Bikini Bottom's a dick to everybody, even if you're just vibing. Anyways, he is then honored by it in the end. Patrick tells SpongeBob that the holiday is nothing compared to No Patrick Day. After Patrick says this, everyone decides to celebrate National No Patrick Day and boards the bus until SpongeBob stops Patrick. The second everyone leaves, Patrick wonders where they went, forgetting what he had just said as the episode closes. Alright, this is a quick rundown of the episode plot. Now let's talk about why this particular episode is eerily disturbing. First things first to note about is the title card. Out of every SpongeBob title card, this one easily takes a cake for being the most depressing and ominous feel to it. I say this because the title is slapped right down in the middle where the background is all pitch black with the flower crown shading in while there's absolutely nothing else going on there. It's something worth noting because if you gather other SpongeBob title cards, they just feel tame and upbeat and something that doesn't feel odd about it, unlike this one. Just worth noting. Anyway, this episode really tackles the reality of being alone. We see SpongeBob letting this subject slide as he continues to be cheerful and apathetic in his life by copying his friend's personality and still having a sense of consciousness. However, it's the fact that this is how SpongeBob would cope with his distressing loneliness because this is how he stays sane. Literally, he even states this when he goes a little crazy to befriend a literal boat to keep him sensible.
I thought I'd go crazy without all my friends and acquaintances around, but it looks like you were all I needed to stay sane.
So, think of it this way. What would you do if everyone in your life disappeared? The key word is everyone. If you lose someone close or someone important in your life, obviously you would feel dread and grief, but that doesn't mean you are not alone. Yeah, of course this works differently for everyone, but the reality of losing everyone can cause a chronic influence on yourself than it would be to say losing just that one person that's important in your life, or two, or whatever the case is. Here's an example. You wake up one day suddenly to lose everyone you know and everyone you don't know. How would you cope with this? Again, there can be many reasons for this answer, but all those reasons can overlap with the actual reality of loneliness. Think of it this way. Yeah, you lose everyone in the world, and that sucks. Yeah, you would probably get into a panic, experience new emotions, and go through stages of grief or whatever. But then you would get, the urge to play a video game, or read a book, or watch a YouTube video. You will feel content or relaxed despite the crippling reality that everyone is gone, and your state of mind at that point is an act of relief when it's simply the feeling of relief to distract yourself of being alone. Remember, it's not the feeling of loneliness, it is the reality of it. We see this with SpongeBob distracts himself, and midway through the episode, when mimicking Mrs. Puff, he breaks down crying to the fact he can't keep replacing everyone. Until he suddenly gets the spark to be blissful about something he really wants to achieve, which is getting his driving license. We'll come back to this boat section, but another thing this episode does to make itself very eerie is the music and ambience vibe to it. Music and ambience help set the atmosphere for every media you go through, and with SpongeBob, you always get those upbeat and optimistic music in the background for most of the time. But here, you'll hardly get down to the middle portion of the episode when SpongeBob mimics the town's personality. Again, it's odd because it's this part of the episode where it went from eerie to optimistic, and then it switches back to ominous in the end portion of the episode with the boat section. This brings me to Bodhi, as SpongeBob calls him. Now, to me, Bodhi symbolizes the happiness that SpongeBob grows attachment towards because there's no one else he can interact with and communicate. He basically treats it as his best friend, as the two have a montage of having fun. He finds Bodhi as a new form of distraction from the real loneliness he is experiencing, and it makes sense since we don't see SpongeBob imitating anyone after this. Throughout the episode, he points out that Bodhi is the main reason why he didn't go insane, and he's the reason for helping him stay sane. However, here, all that dialogue is contradicting since SpongeBob already mimicked his friends and values a literal vehicle as a friend, and then he proceeds to erect a puppet of Patrick made of Krabby Patty meat, but the Patrick meat doesn't continue the conversation as Bodhi is listening. This is where the episode highlights SpongeBob's fear and insanity. He goes into fear of running away from any motor vehicle, and because of this, he picks up an axe and swings it down towards an oncoming bus. And this part of the episode drops all the darkest aspects building up since everything is pretty much resolved with everyone in Bikini Bottom showing up. I mean, it's still crazy fucked up seeing the whole town, even his best friend, abandoning him because they found him annoying. Like, honestly, I feel it's a shitty way for the writers to resolve and conclude this episode since this is pretty much torture for SpongeBob. Anyway, the town leaves again to celebrate No Patrick Day while Patrick is abandoned by everyone, including SpongeBob, and the episode closes as he sadly wonders where did everybody go. Now, you could argue whether this ending is a good ending or a bad ending. I mean, it's a good ending because it feels warranted since SpongeBob was left behind by his own best friend, and Patrick getting that same taste of medicine. What? You expected a butt? He literally does deserve it. That's what he gets. To me, I view this ending as both, since we saw the insanity of SpongeBob being alone, and it'll definitely become the same treatment for Patrick. And that wraps up my analysis. Do you agree or disagree with this ending? Or hell, even agree or disagree with this entire explanation from this video? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. That is, unless you guys came this far. I still consider Gone to be a very eerie and disturbing episode, and it holds up there for being just that. Yeah, it's an episode not loved by many, and I totally get that. I just wanted to explain why this episode is straight up unsettling, maybe even depressing. I mean, to be fair, I remember watching this episode on my SpongeBob DVD, Spongicus on my Insignia TV on a lonely morning when I was like 6 years old. Huh. Ironic. I don't know why. Even after all these years, I still find this episode to be very disturbing, and it makes me feel alone. I don't know why. Hello guys, editing here. I just want to quickly make an honorable mention of another episode that holds up there as disturbing. That episode is called Insomnia. If you know the episode, you know. I just want to make a claim of that because I could have mentioned it earlier in the video and I didn't for some reason. But yeah, back to the video. Regardless of that, I made this video to inform my audience and explain the overall uncanniness this episode presents. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I worked really hard on this, and if you could please subscribe. We are almost hitting 1,000 subscribers. That is honestly crazy. That is a milestone I never thought I could reach on YouTube. So please leave a like and subscribe, and I'll make your innocence disappear. With that said and done, I'll see you guys next time, and goodbye.